Hey, this is Pamela Schneider. I'm the retail editor for Blue Book Services, and this is the Produce Reporter Week in Review. Greg, I don't know about you, but it's hot. It's been hot, and it's hot again. And I heard from our crop reports this week and our produce IQ analysis that is starting to affect the produce industry.
It has been brutally hot from basically the Mexican to the Canadian border in the Midwest. And now we're starting to hear about it on the coast, and it's affecting quality. We have a crop report update from Marcon today that talks about the awful heat in the West Coast, 90s, even above 100 from some inland areas. And weather reports are kind of boring if that's all you're talking about. But when you're talking about cracking and inconsistent growth and smaller sizes and shortened shelf life, now our audience should perk their ears up to that, because those are not really good things. It's worse right now on leaf and lettuce crops, but they also have a little bit of an update saying that a lot of commodities will be affected: bell peppers, blueberries, cantaloupe, eggplant, honeydew, even oranges, which aren't in season, squash, lemons, watermelon. I mean, we just had the start of summer this week, and that's prime time for fresh produce. And it's a shame that we're starting to see some of these weather and quality issues. Hopefully we'll get past that and get back to visiting our scam farmers markets.
Scam farmers markets. Actually, you know what? After I wrote that column about how farmers markets aren't really where a farmer makes a lot of profitable income, and that it's not where people buy. It's just not possible for people to buy at scale in farmers markets. Of course, my phone is listening to me, and TikTok started serving up to me videos of farmers who were talking about how they can't feasibly go to all these farmers markets. They just don't have the staff. And each little neighborhood wants to have a farmer's market on their corner every other Saturday. And let's think about it. I mean, if you've got one, couple 100-acre farmer, that would be what I would consider to be somebody who's just surfing a local municipality like Austin. The one farm that was here that folded last year, they had a couple 100 acres, and they were at every little farmer's market, but they had to hire people to go to every one of those little farmer's markets. And it's just not feasible if the farmer doesn't have 12 kids, something like that.
It's all make-believe. Even smart small farmers have deals with local retailers. We run stories every year, especially about independent retailers having programs with local growers. I mean, that's the perfect way. It cuts out the inefficiency. It gets local produce to the mass audience, because that's where people buy food. And the farmer market experience is just some make-believe food cost.
Where you go to get your face painted and buy something that
get some honey there. But yeah, buy your watermelons at the grocery store, please.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things that has bothered me for a while. But to see actual farmers talk about it, and just the evolution of TikTok in general, if you get in the right algorithm, you can see some really great stuff. You can also see some garbage. I think the produce industry, especially marketers, need to really think about their TikTok strategy and how to go at it in a very approachable, relatable, and truthful, real stuff. Let's not rely on I saw Bill Goldfield actually had responded to a viral article that said that if you store your pineapples on their side, then the sugars will redistribute throughout. And somebody had said that in some article, and he's like, no, that's not how pineapples grow. That's just pineapples. It goes like this. And so all the sugar isn't, that's just not how it grows. So we need people like him. And we need people like the produce moms, and they're all working out there, trying to reach the masses, get some of this information. Totally different segue than we had planned. But it gets to my next point, where we're talking about, we had a study come out that said that the FMI's Power of Private Brands just came out, and this is very similar to the Power of Produce. Talking about what people are thinking about when we're talking about private label produce, and people are really gravitating toward it right now. No surprise.
It's a tough situation for our readers and viewers, because building brands is really important. But right now, especially with inflation, consumers, we've talked about this throughout the spring, consumers are looking to save money and they don't want to sacrifice quality. Private
Love.
label is a really, really real thing. And the retailers who do it well, not all of them do, they're reaping the rewards and they're able to connect with that consumer on a value and price level and empathy, like we've talked about.
Yeah. And I've
Way to do
gone
it.
point.
It's harder as a brand to do that when you're trying to build a brand that's associated with a high quality product.
Right. And I've gone point counterpoint. If somebody needs me to advocate on the behalf of private labels, I will go out there. But I also recognize that there are retailers and brands that work tremendously well. I was just in Columbia, Missouri, for example, at a Schnucks, the Eat Well location, which I had forgotten about that it opened up. This is the only one and it opened in 2020 at the old Lucky's, but Schnucks is a Driscoll's retailer. And so they had the Driscoll's rosé berries, which I had not seen in a regular store. There are retailers out there, especially I found in the Midwest, who are very conscious of promoting excellent brands. And then there are retailers like where I live. H-E-B is an incredibly strong private label retailer. And if you think about the other big retailers that are very successful, a lot of them have a very strong private brand. Wegmans, for example, Publix, for example. I mean, all of these guys have really strong private labels, and I am sure that they are pressuring the supplier community right now into doing programs with them because that's where consumers are gravitating.
So how do you see Costco shaking out on that? Because they have one of the best known and high quality private labels, but they really don't use it in produce. They are very brand oriented when it comes to produce. Do you ever see Kirkland brand anything?
I'm trying to remember. And I, if you recall, there's a Costco about 2,000 feet that way from my house. So I'm there all the time. And I don't recall seeing, if I have ever seen, it must have been fresh cut something or other, but they're not like going out there and buying Honeycrisp apples and branding them as Kirkland brand Honeycrisp apples. But if you go anywhere in the rest of the store, you've got Kirkland water, Kirkland diapers, Kirkland spicy water. I mean, all of that stuff. Kirkland vodka.
Two different kinds of Kirkland vodka, French and American. One of my favorite whiskeys is Kirkland Canadian whiskey. Great price.
Yeah, great product, and you don't see it very much in the produce department. So I would maybe have a chat with them to find out, why don't they Kirklandize their produce department? They must find some kind of value. And I do recall having a nice chat with Frank Padilla way back in the day when he was the produce retailer of the year. I was walking through a warehouse with him, and he was one of the advocates of doing cases that you could see the label of the produce in it. Like, why are we putting in this box? We're displaying in boxes. The box needs to be branded. And of course, consequently, half the cardboard boxes in my house are some kind of Costco branded cardboard box. So I don't know. I don't know why they don't do more private labels in produce. And maybe someone will see this and reach out to me. I love those kind of comments.
That would be nice.
We had another news release this week from a survey of restaurant operators talking about how their foot traffic and demand is back to pre-pandemic levels, but there's a big problem with that.
Right. Labor is not back to pre-pandemic levels. And I mean, this is something that a lot of people saw coming is, when we started seeing government interventions during the pandemic and paying people not to work, and then displacing them by affecting different industries. There are people who were in the food service industry who couldn't work, who went to other industries and aren't returning. And now there are so many jobs out there, and it's going to make inflation worse because employers are fighting for employees, and one way to attract them is to raise wages. Of course, that will get passed on. So it's like, man, the restaurant industry keeps getting restricted by all these outside factors not related to their quality and service.
Well, and I mean, if you think about it, most restaurant jobs are entry level. Most of them are what somebody would call low skilled. And as someone who, one of my first jobs was at a restaurant, and no, that is not low skill. That is high skill, high back-breaking labor. It's not exactly fun. And you know, I wouldn't blame somebody for moving on if they had a chance to move on and do something else. But the labor pool of people who want to go back into restaurants is not there. And so I think it's causing restaurant operators to have to, or to choose to run leaner, and as lean as possible. So any kind of labor savings, cost savings, efficiencies, I bet you the restaurant consultant guys are doing great right now, because they're the ones who are coming in and figuring out, how can you do this better? How can you do this faster? How can you automate this? Is that going to push more restaurants into pre-cut things and value-added stuff that's going into their maybe pre-made guac, instead of trying to do it and try to keep ripe avocados on hand? You know, that's a pain point. Onions are a huge pain point for restaurant operators. So I think that there's some opportunity, although it is a huge bummer as far as the difficulty and cost of running a restaurant, for people in the produce industry who are looking to gain more business. That is definitely an opportunity for pre-cut, for efficiency, for a lot of the value-added people out there, to try to remind restaurant people that, you know, it's a lot of the labor is out there chopping them veggies. So there's some good and bad. I'm sorry, what?
There is, and a lot of what I'm seeing, especially in quick serve, is limited or completely closed dining rooms.
Yeah.
And it means that carryout continues to be important, continuing on with what we saw during the pandemic. And that's an opportunity for the industry to deliver product that performed well in carryout.
Yeah. I just had a vacation to my college hometown last weekend. The one that's not on your shirt, the one.
Oh, different one than that?
Yeah, and what was really funny, and I said this to my husband, where we were at breakfast at our favorite place, and we did see some shrinkflation. The stretch at the Broadway Diner maybe isn't as big as it used to be, but you know what? Do I need a giant bowl of chili and eggs and hash browns and cheese and stuff like that? You know, a smaller one probably is good for me. But it was like, it was a time capsule, because the service was so fast. The food was so good. It was like olden times. It wasn't like where you pretty much go into a restaurant these days with a lower expectation of quality and service than you had 3 years ago. But apparently Columbia, Missouri didn't get that memo, and everything seemed the same as I remember from 20 years ago when I graduated.
Missouri is God's country. I may be a Jayhawk, but I am a Missouri resident and damn proud of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for the Produce Reporter Weekend Review. If you are not getting the Produce Reporter newsletter twice a day, you need to go to producebluebook.com and sign up. Oh, and I got these truffles. Did you see the press release this week? I got some truffles from Natural Delight.
I saw the press release. I didn't get that in my mail.
You're not as special as I am. Unfortunately,
Really?
I'm also allergic to coconut, and they have coconut in them, so I should send them to you so you can give them a try.
All of them, or just one of them?
Every single one of them. They have coconut flour.
Oh, well, I guess the rest of your family can enjoy it, unless they inherited that.
Foiled by the coconuts again. See ya.